You are now listening to the Project Kuwait. Where we stop at nothing to bring you the right facts on health, fitness, and psychology. Featuring some of the world's most experienced professionals. So you can learn, live, and live. With your hosts, Meg, Dr. D, and Mehdi.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Project, and today we are joined again by Haya AlSharhan. This is her third time back on the episode, and she comes back on to talk about CrossFit and what has happened over the last week with the sport of CrossFit. Will it survive? Will it not survive? She dives into what it's like to be an affiliate owner. She talks about business in Kuwait and how it has grown and how her business has seen growth over the last couple of years. She also discusses training methodologies. She talks about motivational aspects of training during quarantine. It's a really good episode. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. And please don't forget to leave us a rating and review.
All this and more in today's episode.
Welcome to this episode of The Project. And we are joined by, this is your third time on The Project, right?
Yes, it is.
Haya AlSharhan, mom fit, absolute badass mom here in Kuwait. She's probably one of the toughest CrossFitters in Kuwait, first female CrossFitter in Kuwait to go to regionals. The list goes on with your credentials. It's so great to have you back on the show. And I really got to give you props for over the last month, seeing your Instagram especially. And one thing that I really appreciate out of you is having positive body image things on your Instagram, because I think that's neglected a lot of the time. And thank you for that. I think that's a great thing that you're doing out there.
Thank you, Mehdi, for that. And I'm excited to be back on the podcast with you guys and just trying our best to share my own story and share what I think is important and would help other people relate. And we're trying to make people feel better and get healthier physically and mentally. So that's the topic I think that I'm passionate about, but we'll keep that for another time.
That's awesome. I hope you're not going to yell at me this time like the last podcast. And you guys could go listen to that. I think that was episode 45. So...
Well, there's so much to yell at you for.
Yeah, and we are joined by Haya. What is it? They used to call you guys what? Haya S and Haya Q in school?
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Wait, can I moderate this? What is not meeting? It is a Zoom meeting. This episode.
Yes, you can.
Because I'm the only
CrossFitter?
Well, are we calling it
CrossFit?
CrossFit? The sport that used to.
Yes,
that was?
we can still use. Yes, we can still say CrossFit.
Okay, so the first question here is, what happened?
I'll start out by saying, Mehdi, you mentioned that I was the first Kuwaiti athlete to compete at regionals. I also want to just briefly mention that we were the first affiliated CrossFit gym in Kuwait. We opened in 2012. So we've been an affiliate since 2012. And honestly, I'm so passionate about the sport. I'm so passionate about CrossFit HQ. And I'm constantly trying to keep myself updated with their news and news within the brand and within the sport. So I want to cover two things that happened. First of all, there's issues going on with the affiliates, and I'll get into that later because I want to talk more into detail about that. But briefly, I'll just mention that with the Black Lives Matter protests going on in the States, there was a racial tweet that was done by the CEO of CrossFit, Greg Glassman. And obviously that exploded and people were really upset about it. And then after that, it was just a bunch of issues that were coming up related to racism. There was different games athletes, Black games athletes who were coming out and speaking out about lack of diversity. Especially there's an athlete that I really admire for years. And I used to watch her when she used to be at the games, Elizabeth Akinwale. She's a Black CrossFit Games athlete. She's a mom and she's won several events in the games. And she was talking about how I think it was 2011 or 2012 when she won events and she didn't get any recognition for it. And there's more details to that story. And she talks all about it on her Instagram page. But then along with Greg's tweet, there was also apparently something going on with some of the games athletes. There was a text conversation. One of the games athletes said the N-word to another games athlete.
Oh, wow.
And that exploded. Those two games athletes, their sponsorships got revoked. And I think the team they were part of, which was, I think, the Misfit team. They were kicked out of it. It just added fuel to the fire.
There was the Zoom meeting as well, right?
The Zoom meeting, that's related to the affiliates.
Mm-hmm.
So problems going on with the affiliates is at first there was an email. So as you're probably aware that on Instagram, not everyone, but a majority of big company accounts posted up a black square in support of Black Lives Matter. And CrossFit didn't do that, which is fine. They don't have to, but they didn't mention anything about the protests, And I mean, that's typical of CrossFit on social media. They try to stick to their own lane. So I wasn't surprised when they didn't. But apparently there was an affiliate owner. And from what I heard is she's extremely involved with CrossFit HQ. She has a good relationship with Greg, who's the CEO of CrossFit. And apparently they've collaborated on many things. She sent an email basically just respectfully sharing her concerns that CrossFit did not stand up with the Black Lives Matter movement. There was no support or any mention or anything, and that she's disappointed and stuff like that. And basically, Greg replied to her in a very extremely rude email. It can be found on Instagram through some social media accounts that are covering CrossFit news. And he was very rude. He called her evil and you should be ashamed. And it was very rude and uncalled for. And some people were really upset about that. But honestly, Greg Glassman has a history of being rude. That's just how he is. If you look him up on YouTube, he has several lectures. He's extremely passionate. He's very smart. He just expresses himself in a very aggressive and sometimes in a rude way. And the majority of the CrossFit community already knows that, and people just kind of brush it off. But I think because this was related to something that's going on in the US and worldwide and everyone is reacting to it, and then for him to reply to her in that way, it just made everyone really upset. And obviously the email was posted on Instagram, on social media, so everyone saw it and everyone reacted to that. And then apparently there was also a Zoom meeting for several affiliate owners, obviously ones who were in the US. And again, the Black Lives Matter movement was brought up, and Greg did not respond in a very thoughtful way. He also mentioned a few other racist remarks or something like that. But the point of the meeting was to get support for affiliates after COVID-19 and how a lot of gyms had to close. That was the point of the Zoom meeting, but it's kind of shifted away from that. And the affiliate owners obviously didn't get the support or the advice that they were hoping to get from that meeting. So I think those are the two main issues that are happening with CrossFit. And then basically what happened is everything exploded and everything was, displayed on social media. And then all these different athletes were speaking out and different affiliate owners were speaking out. Then I think it was Jason Kalipa who was the first affiliate owner to say that I'm going to de-affiliate with CrossFit. And then a bunch of other gyms started following after that. I think I covered it all.
You summed it up pretty well.
I think it's fair to say as well that it wasn't necessarily the tweet that caused all of this. It was an accumulation of years and years of things that had happened. And this was just the tipping point for everybody.
When it comes to the affiliates, we've been an affiliate since 2012, and I'm sure some affiliates, especially in the States, older affiliates, their concerns were that there was no support for affiliates in terms of communication, in terms of resources. I'll just quickly say that if people don't know, an affiliate is basically a gym that pays CrossFit HQ, CrossFit, the company, an annual fee around $3,000, basically to use the CrossFit name in our gym, in our classes, and to be, an affiliate. In the States, I think they get also insurance support or something like that. But as international gym owners, we don't get that. But in general, being an affiliate, we haven't gotten much out of it other than being able to use CrossFit name.
You made that shift a year ago, though, didn't you?
Well, myself and Yusuf have been discussing that for a couple of years, actually. But we were so attached to our CrossFit Kuwait brand. As our gym expanded and as our community grew and the type of members we started having, especially with Yusuf, like the athletes that he's been working with so many athletes in different fields, different sports. So we weren't just doing CrossFit within our gym. It was more than that. It was important for us to show that within our brand that we're more than just CrossFit. So then finally last year, we made the decision to changing our name to Grit, Strength and Conditioning, which CrossFit would fall under that. But that portrayed our brand more, I think so. But when we did the name change, we didn't change our affiliation. We were still CrossFit Kuwait as an affiliate with CrossFit. We just changed our name to Grit, Strength and Conditioning.
Just a little backstory. Your husband was probably the first Kuwaiti CrossFitter, correct? If I'm not mistaken, based on the previous episodes we had, I think it was episode 15 or 14, you came on and he basically taught you CrossFit. He was a very active CrossFit advocate over the years. He's probably one of the better trainers in our community. And I think you guys have a great community over at Grit. I personally went to a few classes there. And to tell you the truth, I loved it. I honestly loved it.
That's great.
I was hoping Haya, my wife, would stay in the hospital a little longer so I could go do some more classes.
Because you only went that week when I was in the hospital for my broken arm.
It was very convenient. It was so welcoming going in there.
I feel so good. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that. I think we're lucky that with our gym and our community, I mean, we're not like, I don't know if there's any other gym like ours in Kuwait where the owners are in the gym every day, coaching the classes, managing the gym. We know every member by name. That's how our community is, and that's how we run things in our gym. And I think that reflects with our members and the atmosphere that we've created. So, alhamdulillah.
Affiliates pay a franchise fee, so to speak. And I worked in marketing. I worked for a franchise and I know what the franchise fees are. But when I was with a franchise, we got a lot of supporting material. We would get recipe cards. We would get point of purchase materials like banners, flyers, you name it, we always got it in terms of marketing support, recipe support. So CrossFit didn't give you guys anything?
You don't get any of that. I mean, back in the day, before CrossFit updated their website, I don't think they have it now, but in their old website, CrossFit.com, they used to have a forum. I actually used to go on that forum to find conversations between other affiliates, like how do you hire a coach? Or what kind of marketing do you do? Or what kind of programming would work with this specific client, or just stuff like that. And it was just affiliate owners discussing among themselves. It was not moderated. There was nothing coming from CrossFit HQ to support the affiliates. And if there was any information, like their YouTube channel has several lectures on YouTube talking about programming, nutrition, or movements and stuff like that. But that's all free. That doesn't come with the money that we're paying CrossFit HQ. That's available for anyone to see.
Wow. So that's a very good brief on the business side of everything. So now let's go to the athlete side a little bit, because you are one of the best CrossFit athletes for females in Kuwait. You were definitely ranked in the top over the last few years in terms of the Open. And how does all this making you feel right now? Like, I mean, you've been in it for longer than me. I've been in it for 2 years. So for me, I'm going to pack up and go to, obstacle course training or something. So, but for you, who's dedicated your life to it, who's come back after having a child and going into Battle of the East, which is a very big competition here in Kuwait, and doing it so short after giving birth, how do you feel right now? What are your emotions as an athlete?
Let me tell you this, Mahdi, CrossFit is not going anywhere. Affiliates have voiced their concerns. There have been ongoing Zoom meetings. There was a Zoom meeting yesterday for the top affiliates in the US, and CrossFit HQ and Dave Castro were listening in to their input and to their concerns. People are suggesting there should be some sort of board of directors for affiliates where they could provide more support and stuff like that. So I think there is hope that CrossFit HQ is trying to fix the situation. And if things change, I wouldn't be surprised if the gyms that decided to de-affiliate would come back, especially in the States. I mean, here in Kuwait, most of the gyms have created their own sense of community, their own brand, whether that's through CrossFit or not. But Kuwait, we're a small country. When it comes to the US, some of those CrossFit gyms depend on CrossFit as their marketing or as their brand name as a gym, you know? For example, when you travel to the States and you're a CrossFitter, you're going to Google CrossFit near me, and then you're going to go to the closest CrossFit gym. So if the gyms who de-affiliate might miss that opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised if some affiliates return, if CrossFit HQ makes some positive changes. And if they don't, the affiliates that decide to leave have a lot of work to do in terms of branding and marketing and creating a new image for their gym. As a competitive athlete, the sport is not going anywhere. I think, I'm not 100% sure if this is the right amount, but I think there's like over 15,000 affiliates worldwide or something like that. And the ones who decided to de-affiliate are maybe 1,200, something around that number. So there are still a lot of affiliates that are still planning on sticking around. So CrossFit is not going anywhere.
As an athlete and looking at previous sports, I mean, looking at the history of it, when this all happened, I looked at Haya and I said, if I look at the history of all major sports like football, baseball, basketball, they've all dealt with adversity like CrossFit has dealt with, but they had that brand establishment. They had the sport established already, especially the NFL. I mean, they went through hell in the 60s and the 50s, but they bounced out of it. And CrossFit is still relatively a baby in terms of global competitiveness as a sport. And we've seen affiliate growth. It's been staggered over the last 2 or 3 years. So if they were, say Glassman doesn't give up the name, so then we can't use the name CrossFit by copyrights. Functional fitness, that's been used. It's died. You had F45. They tried doing their competition. You had PX90 doing a competition. And they've all failed. CrossFit was the only one that kind of stayed. So how do you think they're going to go about this? Haya was telling me that she saw Rogue is going to still hold their invitational.
If I could also just add to that, because the past year they've been doing a lot of sanctional events as well. You've had all these different companies and countries and like they've all been hosting their own competitions. So I was saying it's like when you look at powerlifting, it's not like there's one powerlifting association. There's dozens with different rules and people can go into whatever fits, whether you want tested, untested, geared, equipped, all of that. So like, I thought it would be interesting if CrossFit would go down that direction in terms of like not one.
It's hard to compare CrossFit to any other sport because in the end, it's a company with one owner who calls all the shots. That I don't think it's like that in any other sport. So it's hard to compare it to anything else. Just like you said, Haya, there's sanctionals going on. Rogue is going to continue giving competitions. They might remove the CrossFit name from their marketing, but it's still CrossFit. They're just not going to say CrossFit. And I think when it comes to competitions, nothing's going to change. It's a big hit for some affiliates, but when it comes to competing and to the sport, nothing is going to change. That's my opinion.
So with Greg stepping down and Dave coming up, like, does that do anything?
This is speaking from the perspective of affiliates who are angry with Greg and want to see him go away. Greg is still the owner. He stepped down as CEO, but he still owns CrossFit. He's still going to get the money from the affiliates, you know. So some affiliates are saying that they want him out of the picture completely. And I don't know if that's possible, if they would even do that. But Dave Castro as CEO, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't know if he's... I think Dave is amazing and he's done so much for the sport. But Dave is so passionate about the games and he spends all year working towards that. So for him to step down from that and have his focus elsewhere, I just hope he won't be like the puppet for Greg. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. I don't see people going back to CrossFit HQ after all of this. I think you guys were all looking for an out to begin with, right? I mean, over the last few years, when I got into CrossFit, everything was fine and dandy. And then all these weird changes came to the games and it just all kind of shifted. And for us as Kuwaitis, it made sense to have the national champion as a Kuwaiti versus the fittest in the country because before Khalid Jalal and before Nasser this year, there had been no Kuwaitis at the top of that echelon, so to speak. It had always been non-Kuwaiti as one of the fittest in Kuwait going to regionals, if I'm not mistaken. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll emphasize what you said, how there have been changes within the past couple of years when they removed regionals. And then, there was like a mass firing within CrossFit HQ of like the people who basically built that company when it comes to media, their social media and their YouTube and all their marketing team. That was all, I think that affected the community a lot. I mean, I remember I loved CrossFit's YouTube channel and especially their coverage of different competitions. And then that was all gone. I was really sad. But going back to the idea of like national champions and stuff, honestly, the goal of CrossFit Games is to find the fittest. So I don't necessarily think it was wrong for them to take a non-Kuwaiti athlete from our region, because in the end, they're trying to find the fittest athlete in the world. So it's not about finding the fittest athlete in each country. And honestly, I think the idea of national champions, that was Greg's idea. And I'm assuming he wanted that not to create more diversity within the sport. It was because in order to have a national champion, the country needed to have an affiliate. So that was just a way to expand more affiliates worldwide. That's my personal opinion. Yeah.
They said there was a play that he was trying to get CrossFit into the Olympics at one point, and that's why he did national champion. I don't know if that's true or not.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
And that's when they were basically like, no, CrossFit's not going to the Olympics because it's more of a private sport anyways.
I wanted to go back to what you said, that some gyms were trying to find an out of CrossFit. I just want to correct you and say that for us personally, I can only speak about our gym, Kuwait Strength and Conditioning, is we weren't trying to get away from CrossFit or step away from CrossFit. Like for us, we were just trying to weigh the pros and cons of paying an affiliate fee, but it's not necessarily disagreeing with CrossFit as a methodology or whatever. We agree with the CrossFit methodology and we support it and we use it and we will continue to use the CrossFit methodology. So for us, it was just weighing the pros and cons of paying an added expense of an affiliate fee when we're not getting anything in return. But I will say this, that the gyms that are saying that we are de-affiliating, there's no such thing as de-affiliating. It's just when your affiliation fee comes up, you just don't renew it. For us personally, for this year, still didn't come up. So until then.
And just a little bit of a backstory, and we talked about this before the show started. I mean, we hear the stories of American Dream, and I think you guys and you and your husband have created the Kuwait Dream, a small business run by Kuwaitis for Kuwaitis. All your trainers are Kuwaitis. I mean, going in there, the community feel, and for non-Kuwaitis, it's very acceptable too, like to go in there. I just want to put that out there. And how does it feel from a business perspective, dealing with COVID-19, dealing with this? It's got to be a tough hit at this point.
Yeah, it was difficult closing our gym. And I can't wait to get back to having our regular classes again. We're trying our best. We switched to offering a lot of services online. And we're trying, our best to do that in the meantime. But going back to CrossFit HQ and affiliation fee, they were still expecting affiliates to pay their fee during this time. So a lot of gyms are struggling with the closing of their businesses during COVID-19. So, I mean, for us, alhamdulillah, we're managing. We just can't wait to open our doors again.
Oh,
I think another thing that we also have to focus on here, I think you brought this up earlier, is that there's a big difference between CrossFit, the brand, and the whole community.
Yeah.
And how even at a time like this, the entire community came together and they kept saying, they're like, no, like this sport, this methodology has changed my life. And I mean, it's highlighting the fact that Greg's always kind of had these tendencies, even his resignation note. I read it to Mehdi thinking this man has a God complex and a half, talking about himself.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. He does. He does.
But the community is still strong and the community wants to get through this and they want to figure something out for everybody. So were you the one that's saying, what am I going to do with my life right now?
The other day I did a workout. I finished it. I put up a picture of a lost puppy and it said the lost puppy. And I was like, I don't know what sport I'm training for right now. And to be honest with you, like my motivation to train is for myself and hopefully to compete at whatever level. And I believe the methodology of CrossFit gives me the ability to compete in non-skill sports, if that makes any sense. And Yeah, it's true. Like right now, it's like, am I going to functional fitness? Am I going to go do Spartan races and go into that cult, or, what's going to happen? So.
There are already a lot of gyms, especially in Kuwait, that do CrossFit. They're just not affiliated, and they might not say CrossFit, but it's CrossFit. And you as an athlete, you can call yourself a CrossFitter. CrossFit, the term is not going anywhere. So you can call yourself a CrossFitter. You are doing CrossFit. You don't need to worry about that.
I might just come to Grit and just do strength and conditioning and try and take on some of the fighters over there. Some of those young kids, let them bash my head in a little bit. Speaking of Grit, you guys deal with a lot of athletes there. And how has it been expanding your business over the last 2 years? I mean, your husband is very involved with the fighters here in Kuwait. You're very involved with a lot of female athletes and especially moms in particular. And we did an episode recently and we were talking about Kuwait and charlatan trainers, and I brought you up saying that you're probably one of the most legitimate trainers when it comes to training moms postpartum after having a child. I've been seeing a lot of trainers right now popping up. They haven't even had a kid, and they're like offering mom fit programs. And I'm like, really? Don't you have to go through the journey to sort of sift that out? So how has it been with the business expansion over the last couple of years?
I think what's nice is the fact that my passion when it comes to my style of coaching and Yusuf's passion are on opposite ends. He's really well experienced and is passionate about working with athletes, and specifically competitive athletes and athletes at the top level, where I love working with beginners or moms or young girls, people who need someone to hold their hand and support them and guide them and help them build themselves up, because we're doing this out of passion to help and to serve our community. I think that's been our biggest advantage. Like I said, we're in the gym every day. We're managing our gym. We're putting all our efforts into our business. And our community sees that. And I think that's what's helped us grow. We're just going to keep doing that. We're doing what we love. I feel blessed that we're able to do that.
And it helps that you as a public figure, I mean, just the vulnerability and the honesty that you portray is unprecedented. And I really, really appreciate it, because you're like, here are my highs, here are my lows. And you've been focusing a lot more on kind of dissecting all this false body image that's what's going on lately. And I love it. And please keep doing it, because it's so, so important. Like we were talking about the other day, these two nutritionists that are going around putting people on like 1,000-calorie diet.
1,300 calorie diet. And
that makes me so sad, honestly.
No. So I love that like your account and others like you are on there kind of saying, stop. This is not good. This is not what you want. Like this is unhealthy. So keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's very reassuring with someone of your influence actually doing that. And what makes you tick to say, okay, you know what? I want to break the norm. I don't want to be a sellout. I don't want to be a sellout like others out there that have that influence. I want to try to use my influence for good. So what makes you tick to do that? Because it's very difficult and we see it with influencers and people of influence all the time. They'll post something like, oh, I hate Talabat. And then 2 days later, Talabat is sending them like free food. It's like, dude, really? Where did your credibility go? And I think it's great that you have credibility and authenticity. So what makes you tick?
When I started my Instagram account, I didn't even want to have an Instagram account, but it was right after we came back from competing at regionals, Yusuf and myself in 2013, where I had recently started coaching at the gym. So he recommended that I start a public Instagram account just to share my journey. And I did. So my Instagram account was for a very long time just me sharing my journey as a CrossFit. I talk about coaching a little bit, but it was just mostly me sharing my journey in CrossFit. And then especially after having kids, I think after having kids and going through some obstacles, trying to compete again after having kids, going through body image issues after having kids, and finding, information or lack of information for moms or athletes who are moms. I became really passionate about spreading more awareness and providing more guidance specifically to moms, because I felt I couldn't find it for myself. So I think anything related to motherhood, pregnancy, and postpartum is something I'm really passionate about. Women are in such a sensitive and emotions are really high during that time, and it breaks my heart to see such bad and false information on social media used as a marketing tactic to get these moms to buy programs or to do certain exercises or to join gyms. And it just drives me insane. And I feel I have to speak up about it.
That's amazing. That's really good to hear. And a couple more questions before we let you go. I know we've taken a lot of your time, and you show the pictures of you getting up at 5:30 being like, the kids are up again. And I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly how that feels when DJ just like, well, see, you might get waking up nicely. I get my son punching me in the stomach. But what's going to be next for you as an athlete? When are we going to see you back on the competitive floor? Will it be BOE? Will it be after BOE? When are we going to see the Kuwaiti mom, swinging off the rings again?
Honestly, I took a step back in my training being at home. I dropped down the intensity a lot, adding some cardio here and there, mostly focusing on, I'm not doing any Olympic lifts. I dropped the intensity a lot. And I feel I'm happy with how I'm maintaining my fitness. Once our gym doors open again and I get back into serious training again, and then in terms of competition, we don't know when people will be allowed to have those kind of events. Maybe, I don't even know if we'll be allowed to have those kind of events, not until next year. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get to compete before the end of this year. I mean, I've been working real hard lately, and it's just like, all right, you know what? I might be able to catch up to some of these guys that have been doing it for years. I doubt it, but I'll keep dreaming.
You'll get your chance, inshallah. When it's time, the competitions will be back. If not, you can test yourself online competitions until,
I was going to try that, but I couldn't do it. It's too boring for me to do it online. It's different when you're training with an actual competition. Doing it online, it's like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to go as hard as I am. I know myself.
Just sounds like an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
You weren't in a competition.
Speaking of, I think you brought up a great point with motivation at this time. A lot of people are finding it difficult to train, and it's hard to stay motivated. I know I went through that rut. Hey, I went through that rut. And it's been really tough dealing with COVID-19 and all the different situations with the quarantine and time to go out. So what advice could you offer some of the novice people who have only started over a year and a half that are demotivated to train right now?
I think it's not just beginners, but even, some competitive athletes are going through that, whether that's CrossFitters or other sports. And I think at a time like this, you really have to ask yourself why you're working out or what your goal is and why that is your goal. I always go back to the idea that working out makes me feel great. Sure, my training was focused on competing and all of that, but in the beginning, working out makes me feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. I feel so good after a workout. So I always keep that in the back of my head. And, that helps me keep going, even if my training has to change every once in a while, depending on the stage I'm in life or the situation I'm in. Movement has so many physical and mental benefits. So I think it's just getting started. I mean, as soon as you warm up, then with some good beats and stuff, your motivation will kick back in. That's what I think. Even for competitive athletes, you have to understand why you're doing what you do. And that should be motivation enough.
Yeah, well said. Very well said.
Well, actually, no, to add to that, like when I broke my arm, initially it was really upsetting because clearly I can't do like 2/3 of the things that my sport calls for me to do.
You mean like the two movements?
The two movements that I perfect. I'm sorry, bring out your medals. But I remember
that was just me.
I was in the hospital and you sent me a message. And it was like something along the lines of when you get back, your training will be different, but sometimes you need to switch up your modality a little bit, give your body that shock so that when you do go in to do those movements again, you'll feel good and ready to take that on. And it's true. Like, so even during this time, if you can't do everything you're used to, switching it up, doing something a little different is still going to make you feel good. Just any movement is better than nothing at all.
Exactly. And maybe, maybe there's some part of your training that you've been neglecting, but you can now do at home. It's a good time to start working on those weaknesses or those part of training that you've been neglecting. So then when you do go back to your regular training routine, you would have benefited from the time spent at home. So,
yeah.
How's it been for your athletes? Your husband's athletes, Grit Kuwait's athletes. You guys have some of the top athletes in Kuwait, including Nasser, Ali. I probably left out a bunch of names, but those are the two guys I'm most familiar with. But how's it been during the quarantine and the lockdown for them? I'm sure it's been really difficult.
I'll briefly mention our female members from my classes. As soon as we had to close the gym, I created a WhatsApp group with them, and I've been in touch with them ever since, checking up on them, trying to motivate them as much as I can. They're all following different programs, whether that's from us or they're doing their own thing. But I'm there for them when they need it. And when it comes to Yusuf's athletes, they're competitive athletes and they're continuing their training even at home. Obviously, Yusuf adjusts for each athlete depending on what they're able to do and what equipment they have. But they haven't stopped. They're still working, and he's in touch with them every single day, having Zoom calls with them, checking up on their training, programming for them every day. I mean, Yusuf's style of programming is day by day, depending on how the athlete feels from the previous day training, and then he'll adjust it according to that. So he's really in tune with his athletes. So they've been working hard. They haven't stopped.
That's awesome. That's what I love about you guys over at Grit. I mean, you guys really take ownership in your athletes and you really invest in your athletes, probably more than most gyms in Kuwait, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's really rare to see two young Kuwaiti owners really investing at that level. And you guys set the mold and the model for a lot of people to follow, in my opinion. And, whatever you guys are putting in the water over at Grit, throw some my way.
Thanks, Mahdi. I really appreciate that. And we try our best, Yani, like I said earlier, we really care. We're really passionate about our members and our athletes. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now, which is coaching and what we love to do.
So last question, what type of programs do you guys offer online and how can people get in touch with you? How can they sign up with you guys? So it's just how people can find you guys and sign up for your programs.
We've got a bunch of great programs on our website. If they go to CrossFitKuwait.com and they go to our programs page, we've got programs for beginners, for intermediate, for advanced athletes. We've got specific programs depending on what sport you're in, whether that's martial arts, like we have a program for grapplers. We have a program for obstacle race competitors. We've got, a pull-up program. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of different CrossFit programs, whether that's bodyweight or CrossFit and bodybuilding. That's one of our highest sought out program, which is trying to bring CrossFit and bodybuilding together because obviously everyone wants to look good, but still have fun with CrossFit. So that's one of our most popular.
That's awesome. And that all could be found on Instagram. It's Grit Kuwait, or is it just Grit?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
and then
Grit Kuwait.
And grit.com. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, I really appreciate it. It's always good having you on. So yeah, I look forward to having you back on the show once CrossFit gets started again, or functional fitness or whatever they call it.
CrossFit is not dead, right? Is that the takeaway here?
No, CrossFit is not dead. Thank you guys so much. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You can also find us on Instagram at The Project Kuwait. Thank you, and join us next time.